Hey, Fiends, welcome. And you missed the dress rehearsal where I screwed everything up. And oddly enough, we do not have a storm brewing outside the studio, which is
Yet,
yet,
yet.
yet. But we have a guest tonight, straight out of Compton, straight out of MUFON. You know what MUFON is, Jess?
I do not.
MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. For I notice a lot of people younger than myself don't know what that is, but it started way before me. And we have a guest coming from there who I saw at the last meeting in Pittsburgh. We have Teri Lynge-Kehl coming on. She is a MUFON field investigator, UFO experiencer, demonologist, and overall extraordinary woman and author of Alien Healing. I saw her conference at MUFON, and at the conference, it was just, I'm sorry, her meeting at the conference, and it was amazing. And I wanted her story. We
Mhm.
put this thing out here. Guys, girls, kids, all of you out there, draw your own conclusions, but listen to the experiencers with what they have. I know you have an open mind.
I have an extremely open mind.
Yes, yeah, and well, I mean, she'll be here very shortly. But we just came from a very cool experience this past weekend, Gross Fest,
hmm
Indie Horror Con, and you had a blast.
I did have a blast. Honestly, all the people were amazing. The Gross Brothers, they always know how to put on a show and run the show. I mean, it was a great time.
Yes. Just a blast and just good people and like-minded people, movie people, book people, authors, actors, directors, and all kinds. And then the artwork. Your
hmm
dad's, you may want to plug where to find your dad's artwork because it's amazing and he did well. He sold a lot of stuff.
You did.
Where
Yeah.
where did we get his artwork so people can actually see it?
If you want to see it, definitely go and find him on Facebook. You can find us Celebration of Spirits official. And I am currently in the process of updating the website. So not there quite yet, but when it's ready, celebrationofspiritsofficial.com.
You're a busy girl.
Wait.
The while you listen to this stuff too, all this is will be available on video at some point. I waited a long time to do it just because I didn't want to do it, but we're gonna get that to you folks on the YouTube channel. There is a Kettle Whistle channel right now. It's pretty lame because I was mostly audio, but you that listen know that I've always been just audio. But we're gonna let Teri Lynn Keel in very shortly here. And her story captivated me. And it wasn't just the story, and it's not just about aliens, it's how she held herself and told her story. Because as you know, we put stuff out there and people like it, hate it, love it, come back for it. But you draw your own conclusions. That's the most important part, folks. Draw your own conclusions. And man, she might just hit a mark with you. I know that it's a pretty broad spectrum of items that she's going to bring to the table, and some of which I literally got goosebumps. I was like, oh, I relate to that.
hmm
I know you. I don't know if you know her whole story yet,
I don't.
but
Not her whole story.
and I'm not sure where you are with UFOs after Chuck Sikowski that time. Did that open you up more that episode?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Hmm.
Like I said, I have a very open mind. And especially after doing more and more energy work, things like that, it is, yeah, yeah. I don't like to say nothing's impossible, you know?
Right, right, yeah, leaving the options open. And this woman, she's extraordinary. So I guess we should let our guest in here, and we'll see where we go from there, folks. And thank you for your patience. We'll be right back. And now you know. Teri Lynn, Teri Lynge-Kehl, how the heck are you? It's I know a long time in the making. We had a lot. Well, it was my fault last time. We were supposed to record, and I'm here with Jess. And well, I went to the Chili Peppers, Red Hot Chili Peppers concert, and lost my voice the night
Oh,
before we were going to have you on. And my apologies. I know it's a month later, and I don't know. We were going back and forth, but I am honored to have you here. I did my little intro. I called you all kinds of things. Like, let's go with, all right, MUFON field investigator, UFO experiencer, demonologist, overall extraordinary woman, and author of Alien Healing. Anything
yeah.
you'd like to add to that?
Let's see. Well, I'm a Christian, and
Yes.
I've been a demonologist for, let's see, since about 1978. And I've been having experiences all my life. My family has had a lot of interactions and strange things, phenomena. So I guess I have been a paranormal investigator. I am on the board of directors with MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. And I've been a state director and a state's, yeah, there you go. That's
Yeah,
it.
I've got one of the
And
articles here.
yay,
Yeah, that's the one I picked that up at the one I saw you. I didn't meet you.
in
You were so
Pennsylvania.
busy. You were
Yeah.
so busy that day. But
Well, yeah, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No, 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 no. No, you're here now. So yeah. But go on. I didn't want to interrupt.
Well, no, that's okay. I mean, I've been doing some acting. I have a live TV show here in Paris that I do every single week on a Thursday. And we've had some movies shot here at the house and videos and
Wow.
um,
Hmm. I
country
did
people. So I have kind of a normal life a little bit, you know. Every now and then normality pops its head in my life.
that. Well, you need that. Um,
Yes, you do.
how many that was a rather large conference, at least for me and for the subject matter that day. Is that your normal size crowd, or have you been in front of bigger crowds than that? That
Oh,
one
yeah.
in Fayette
Yeah, much
County.
bigger. Yeah, I spoke at the MUFON Symposium, and I think we had 300 or 400 people there.
Yeah.
And I think in Pennsylvania, we might have had 250, maybe
It seemed
300.
like more. It was a big room.
Yeah, it
I'm
was.
glad it
Yeah.
wasn't because it became very personalized, and
Yeah, and I was stuck behind that little podium. I couldn't move because I was connected to it to run my laptop, and it was very confusing there. It was dark and I couldn't hardly see, and
yeah,
I felt like I couldn't get out and really um, speak to people, and get a little more involved in that presentation. I did feel bad about that, but
you did
it's
really
okay.
well. You did really well.
Well, thank
Trust
you.
me. Yeah, yeah, lasting impression. I was there with Heather Taddy that day, and I have to
Yeah,
thank her friend. Was one of our handlers. I use the term handlers, who handed you my card, and you said that
yeah.
you'd come on, and I was just like kind of blown away. Um, Jess was not with us that day, but she was with me. We interviewed Chuck Zukowski
Mhm.
not too long ago.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
Chuck?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, are you guys acquainted?
I know Chuck. He used to be with MUFON. He's no longer with MUFON.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so I 73. This started for you in 1973.
Um, what started? No,
Yeah, yeah, I know which part.
1979. Okay, yeah. I mean, 73 was my spiritual experiences that
Right,
were profound and miraculous, actually, many, many. And in 1979 was when I had my very first extraterrestrial introduction. Coming home late from work one night, there was a craft hovered over a railroad track in my neighborhood as I was getting ready to make a left off of the main road. And that was very frightening. It was overwhelming, but it was truly life-changing because I did not believe at that time in anything extraterrestrial. I knew ghosts and demons and angels and spiritual things, were real, demonic realms and all of that. But I couldn't in a million years have ever believed in extraterrestrials. I thought that was comic book entertainment. I
right,
didn't believe it at all. And then I saw it. And being a Christian and having been on the worship team, having raised my children, having taught little kids at church, and that type of thing, and being in ministry, for me to see an extraterrestrial, I remember the very first words out of my mouth were, Lord, you've got to be kidding me. This can't possibly be real. This is comic book entertainment. Why would you show me this? And I'm like, why would you show me this? I don't believe in this stuff. And then as I said that, it came to me, well, then what are you looking at? And I was like,
right.
okay. And then it was like I heard him speak to me and say, there's so much you don't understand. And then I said out loud, Nothing can happen to me you don't allow, but why would you allow this? Why don't you find someone else? I'm not interested. I got to get home. And literally I was having a conversation with him like I was would be having with you or somebody else.
Right.
And that is very normal for me. Not normal for a lot of people, but it was very normal for me and always has been since I was a very little girl. I had some absolutely mind-boggling, bizarre things happen to me. So I became very accustomed to talking to him. And we can go into that later, I guess. But
No,
anyway,
that's fine. I want to let you know I grew up Catholic, Christian,
yes,
a very Italian, very superstitious family. And yeah, I confirmation, I did the whole 9 yards.
me too.
I know where my faith is.
Yeah.
And then you come across things
Yeah.
question your faith. So did you
Oh,
question you questioned
yeah.
everything when you see this UFO hovering above a rail? It was above the railroad
Railroad track.
tracks. Yeah.
Yeah.
What it was like? It was spherical, right?
It was spherical. I went back later. It was 42 inches wide. It was from one end of the street to the other. It was hovered over the railroad track. And I could see under it, around it, above it, which was so mind-boggling because in 1979, I was 27 years old and I had no idea, like I said, that even existed. So I was trying to fathom what I was looking at and it wasn't registering with me. And something happened to me. I had missing time, but because I didn't know about missing time, I didn't know I had it until many years later. And many things that I saw, it took me regression therapy to deal with because it was so frightening and uh, literally off the charts bizarre. And
We're
I,
not unfamiliar with therapy like that. So
yes,
we both
yes.
come from a
Mhm.
we come from a
I
place.
I needed help, and it's what brought me to MUFON, to be honest with you, 29 years later, however. But what happened then was I got, up towards it with my car, and all of a sudden my little Honda Civic shut off. And once it shut off, I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I've never had any trouble with the car before. Why would it shut off? And then it did. And that scared me because I thought, I have no recourse. I can't run. I can't, what am I going to do? And I'm looking at this thing with my hands on the steering wheel going, man, that thing is beautiful. That thing is beautiful. Oh, wow, that's really beautiful. And now it was all like speaking to me almost. And I'm like, no, no, my mind could not comprehend what my body was feeling and my spirit was feeling, almost like it was communicating with me. And I wasn't fearful. All of a sudden, I started feeling like, well, I'm okay. Nothing's happened, but I remember slapping my face real hard thinking, oh, I think I had an accident and I probably crashed and I passed out and I'm like hysterical. Something's wrong. So I started slapping my face real hard. And I'm like, no, I felt that hurt. No accident. I'm actually sitting here looking at this thing. And so I was trying to deduce the whole time, you know, we say the terminology wrapping your head around it, but in 1979 I didn't know that terminology, but that's what I was doing. I was trying to understand. And when your mind sees with your own two eyes something that you can't make any sense of, you go into this defense mode. Your mind actually tries to uh like walk you through it in a way, like, okay, Teri, you can see it. And this thing was gorgeous. It had a blue light going around the center of it. And there were no windows. And it just hovered there, no noise. And I felt like I was in some kind of a bubble. And I remember saying out loud, Teri, whatever you do, do not get out of the car. And it was at that very moment, my hand, almost like somebody moved it. And I mean that. I was being controlled and manipulated by something, somehow, which I could not understand. There was a higher power that had taken over. And my hand went right to the doorknob and opened up the door. And I got out and I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? So my inner being and my mind were at enmity with each other. I didn't know why I was struggling like that. I would say very logically to myself, Teri, whatever you do, don't get out of the car. The next thing I'm getting out of the car. And then I'm going, what are you doing? And I'm having this internal issue. It was a full-blown conundrum. And I mean, to the truest extent of that word, I couldn't deal with it. And yet it was happening. And then I'm holding on to the door jamb now and looking at this thing. And again, I'm going from bizarre, freaked out, possibly shocked, to fighting with myself, to, oh my God, that thing is gorgeous, to trying to, all these different things were coming at me at the same time. And that's called overwhelm. And so it was like getting, you know, have you ever played on one of those machines where, you know, you pull the hatch and the ball comes down and you go bing, 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 bing? Well, that's where my mind was. I would go bing, I'd be over here, then bing, I'd be over there, and then bing, I'd be up here. And it didn't compute to me. And then this was a total blow, just blew my mind. The next thing I remember was I was standing in front of the Honda Civic. And I went, no way. I literally said that out loud. And I looked around and it was, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning-ish, 2:15 maybe is what I was thinking. And no cars, no noise, no wind. This thing's hovered, no noise at all. I couldn't even hear a cricket, okay? And the trees weren't moving, the palm trees weren't blowing, and they're always blowing. There's always a little bit of a wind or something moving. The bushes weren't moving. And I felt like I was in a bubble almost. And I thought, this is so bizarre. And then I went, oh, how did I get in front of the car? I was holding the door jamb. What happened? And so it was right at that point, I looked down and I saw that my feet were not on the pavement. And I'm like, no way, you've got to be kidding me. And if I said that once, I said it 1,000 times that night. I could not believe for the life of me that I was floating and standing very erect, very firmly. I wasn't going back and forth, you know, like this or this, but I was just standing there and I could not understand how I was off the pavement. And I kept looking at this craft and yet I would bing back over to, oh my God, that thing is gorgeous. And it was silver, pewtery silver. It was just so still with the blue light just moving. And now we did not have fiber optics in 1979. So I'm looking at a fiber optic type of light for the first time ever in my life. And I couldn't compute where that came from. And so then moving on, this big, huge blue light comes at me from the right side. Now, on 28th Street, Norton, St. Petersburg, Florida, where I was at the corner. I was
going to ask you where that took place. Okay.
Yeah, it's in St. Petersburg, Florida, 1979 on 28th Street North, right next to Morris Street. And there's a big, you know, train track running this way, and then a big empty field. And I had been focused here, but over here was another landed ship. Whoa. And I could not believe that. I'm like, what? You know, and this blue light, massive blue. Now, this was just the little light going around here, but this massive blue, iridescent, the most beautiful blue you ever laid your eyes on. You know, it was just so beautiful. And out of this blue light came the most frightening thing that to that day I had ever seen. I had seen full-bodied apparitions. I had seen ghosts. I had seen dead people that I knew were dead that were standing right in front of me, full body. That's freaky stuff. But this was this was a whole nother level of freaky. And it was a tall white with long arms up past what you would call like a kneecap area, very thin, long neck with a big head and these eyes that were very scary. I mean, I remember looking at him and I swore, I said, Lord Jesus, you've got to be kidding me. I am not looking at that thing. That thing is disgusting. What is that? And I couldn't fathom it. And I was so afraid to look at it because it was so grossly ugly. And I just turned my head like this. Well, he turned me this way, right towards him, and started moving me towards him. And I thought to myself, no way, no way. And now he's on my left side. And I'm like, I'm not looking, I'm not looking. And I passed out. I couldn't take any more. I had stressed my body, my faculties. That was it. I passed out. The next thing I remembered, and I don't know how long I was out, was I was in that other craft.
Oh, geez.
And I was in a room that was fully white, soft glow white. Everything was like a suck down. It looked like everything was fully soft white. In 1979, we did not have soft light bulbs. All light bulbs had a very yellow glow to them, kind of like these do, because these are from the
I was
1800s.
around back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't understand where this soft white glow, it was coming from the walls, from the ceiling, from the floor, off of this thing I was laying on. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm laying down and I'm laying straight back. And I remember bringing my head up and going, oh, I still have my uniform on from work. Oh, my little beige sandals are still on my feet. Oh, good. I'm going to run. And then I'm like, oh my God, what are those things? And all of a sudden there was movement down by my ankle. And it was two very small, what we now call grays. Well, I didn't know they were called grays, okay, because I didn't believe in any of this garbage. And there they were. And this one had these very strange fingers. It looked like he only had 4 of them, and 3 of them were getting ready to touch my left ankle. And I was ready to scream. And I mean, I was getting ready to scream. And then I thought, oh, where's that ugly white thing? And the minute I even thought of him, he was right there. And I looked up and I looked right into his eyes and I got a chill, bone chill right through me. And he spoke to me, but here's what was more bizarre than everything yet to even, share. He was speaking, but he had no mouth and I could hear him. And so he was doing this through mental telepathy, but because I didn't know about mental telepathy at the time, I didn't know it was mental telepathy. So I was freaked out. I could hear him speaking to me as clearly as you can hear me. And he said to me, we will not harm you. We will not take you. He had no change of emotion on his face. I did not see a mouth. No ears, no nose, big, huge skullish head with these big eyes. And that made me mad.
Will not take you, as if you had a choice what's going to go on there.
I screamed out loud, take me where? And so that really peeved me.
Yeah.
That he thought he had that much authority over me that he was going to take me somewhere. And I'm like, hey, I got 2 kids at home. You're not taking me anywhere. I'm getting out of here. And the next thing you know, boom, I'm down. And the next thing I knew, I was standing back in front of my little Honda Civic and I'm staring at this other one, but this is crazy, David. I was not the same girl who went into that craft. I had some type, and don't ask me how, which is why I went for regression therapy years later. I don't know what he did to me, how long I was there. Well, I do know how long I was there, actually. I found that out later, but at that time I didn't know. And all of a sudden I'm saying to him, don't leave me. Don't leave me. Please don't leave me here. And where is he? I don't even see him. All I see is the one hovered here. I never looked back over there. Never even looked back over there. It was like he erased that from me.
Were
And
you
I'm looking
looking, I'm sorry, were you looking for him to like, I don't know, protect you from what
to
was
answer
going
me.
on, or yeah, give you an answer as to what's happening around you, or
Yes, I was just totally blown out. And so as I was sitting there and I'm screaming and there's no response, now I start crying. I literally had full-blown tears in my eyes and I'm going, please, no, don't leave me. Don't leave me. And I'm like, shut up. Now I've got the conundrum again. One side of me is saying, shut up. Are you crazy? You're the mother of two of the most beautiful children on the planet. You don't want to go anywhere. What are you doing? And so I'm fighting internally. And then I do it again. Don't leave, don't leave, don't leave. And then I said it again. And this went on. Teri,
what,
shut up.
what was
So
the, I'm sorry, what was the sudden like attachment that you felt? Was it a comfort suddenly?
it was almost as if I was given an option. And one side of me wanted to go, and the other side wanted me to stay, and was like, I was rebuking myself. What in God's name are you saying? Shut up. And I even called myself an idiot. But then this is the real clincher. All of a sudden, I yelled out loud. I'm in the middle of the street, okay? In the middle of the night, alone, standing on the pavement in front of my Honda Civic, and I scream out, why aren't you taking me? What's wrong with me? Aren't I good enough?
Wow.
And then I said to myself, shut up. My God, why would you say something like that, Teri? Why would you even say that? So it was like I was two different people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't believe I need to shut my mouth and I need to stop talking. And all of a sudden, about the time I was having that thought, this thing flipped and went that flat, the blink of an eye, no sound, nothing moved around me, nothing at all. And I could see the stoplight on 30th Avenue and 28th Street, going from red to green to yellow, over and over and over again. And I
Mhm.
could see that happening. And I had sonic ears. I know it sounds nuts. I could hear it going click to green, click to yellow, click to red. And I'm like, I'm a block away from that. How can I hear that? And this thing now is flipped. It's now completely vertical. And I scream out again, please, please don't leave me. And the next thing I know, I don't know how long I stood there being disappointed that they weren't taking me. It shot up and stopped about 1,000 feet up in the sky. Don't ask me how I could see it as clearly as I could. We're talking nighttime. I'm thinking it's like maybe 2:15, 2:20, 2:30, the very latest it's got to be, 2:30. It can't be any later because I
Mm.
left work at 2. And I'm sitting there looking at it now and it's up there vertical and I'm going one last time, I'm begging for it not to leave. And all of a sudden, the most bizarre thing happened again. And I remember saying this out loud. You've got to be kidding me. How can it get any more crazy than it already is? How can this possibly be more crazy? And all of a sudden, a fireball emanated from the bottom base of that craft, the silver circular craft.
Mhm.
And it just started going, and I could hear the fire. Fire crackles and pops and makes just a very distinctive noise. And it was burning within itself and it was just shaking like this, but it stayed right there. It never left the base. It came out of it and then just started. And I thought to myself, oh, for God's sake, you have got to be kidding me. And I remember looking at that going, whatever you do, don't come down here and burn me. Don't tell me I'm going to get burned up. Oh my God. And then I started thinking, should I be afraid? And all of a sudden it occurred to me, should I be afraid here? What am I doing?
I
Who in
would
the
think,
hell are
yeah,
they?
I think you're natural.
Why am I
Naturally, you
saying
should
come
be.
back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think because being around these beings, whether it's angels, demons, aliens, it opens up a different type of perception that you have. Like you said, you could see the light more clear, or you could sense things, and you actually obviously had feelings you didn't know you had. Did they
Right.
open you up to these new sensations being around them?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. And so
Unfortunately.
this became something that was now almost like, if you will, I'll use the terminology. It's like a badge you get going through it. And it's a knowing that then comes upon you. And once you know, you cannot unknow. Once you see, you cannot unsee.
I've
Once you
heard
get
this
it, you
a lot.
cannot
Yeah.
unget it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't ask for this. And I didn't want that. But it increased my understanding,
Hmm.
but not that much, because I had to work through all these little issues and try to figure them out. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around them at the time. I'm still trying to understand what happened to me, and as it was up there, all of a sudden, it left so fast.
Hmm.
I'm like, I blinked and it was gone. And I thought, now, how could anything possibly travel that fast? Come on. And because I had never checked out anything about UFOs or any of that, I'd never read any of the stupid little, comic books or anything that they had about them. I never watched anything on TV about them. Of course, there wasn't anything on TV in 1979 about them. But I mean, all of a sudden, I'm standing in the middle of the road and I've got my hands on my head and I'm just going, what just happened? You've got to be kidding me, Lord. And I thought, oh my God. And I'm walking around and all of a sudden I go, I got to talk to somebody who loves me, somebody who knows me, somebody who's going to believe me. Who the hell is that going to be? And I thought my mother, so I get back in the car. Now my mom lived literally 2 minutes away from me. She was off at 28th Street and 52nd. I was off 28th Street and 32nd. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Go to her house. So I get in the car, and this was another huge conundrum for me. Turn the key, car starts right up, and I'm like, what? It was dead. It was dead. Just 20 minutes ago, it was dead. What the heck is going on here? And so I give it a little gas, and the darn thing moves, and I switch it around, and go towards my mother's house. I get to her house. I'm knocking on the door, and I'm banging on that door, thinking, "Oh my God, she's got to get up. I've got to talk to her. I'm off the charts here." And
Hmm.
so, her husband comes to the door, and he says to me, "Teri, what are you doing here so early this morning?" And I said, "Morning? It's the middle of the night." And I thought, "Oh my God, Marty, you're so tired. I'm sorry I woke you up, but it's like 2:30." And he was looking at me like, what is wrong with her little attitude? And then my mom comes down the hall and she can see me and she goes, "Marty, is that Teri? Let her in, for God's sake." So I went in and I ran up to my mother and I said, Mom, please put the coffee pot on. I am off the charts here. Something's wrong with me. I don't know what just happened to me, but I got to tell you everything that just happened. And so I sat her down, her husband and her put the coffee on, and she came and sat next to me on the couch, and I gave it to her. And of course, I had so much wild energy in my eyes that night. I thought to myself, uh-oh, she's probably going to reach over the phone and dial 911 any minute now and get the people with the white coats to come and take me away. And I'm thinking, oh, geez, I hope, because she never made her face was just like this.
Hmm.
And she's listening to me. And I'm like, I think I better get up and get out of here. I mean, I'm serious. I was actually scared that my mother was going to turn me in or something and
No,
think,
I understand that fear. That's the kind of fear you get if you've been in a hospital for a long period of time and you'll have a loss of control and you start to not know who to trust. And
even
really,
your
that's
own mother.
yeah, but that's paranoia, it's medicine and
Yeah.
everything else there. You have these outside sources that are beyond anything we've ever seen. Yeah, I
Right.
could see where you become paranoid and easily not trust the people around you, including the people you trusted, especially because she did withhold some information from you and dropped it on you immediately.
Yeah. Oh my
That's
God.
wow. I mean,
And
that
so,
could,
yeah, and there I am sitting there looking at her, and I'm actually becoming very fearful. And then all of a sudden, after I get it all out, I just stop and I look back at her, and she puts her hand on my leg and she goes, "It's okay, honey. I've seen them too." And I'm like, oh, and I jumped off of the couch and screamed in her face with the most anger I think I've ever expressed towards my mother in my lifetime. How could you not have prepared me for this? Why didn't you? I'm 27 years old. What the hell is wrong with you that you couldn't have told me about this? And I'm like, Mom, why didn't you prepare me? I'm off the charts here. I don't think I said off the charts, but I think I said, I'm like feeling so crazy, so bizarre. And I remember just thinking, how could you do this to me? Why didn't you tell me? And her and her husband then very quiet, he told me to calm down. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, 4 o'clock in the morning? It's not 4 o'clock in the morning. I had missed 2 hours of missing time. And because I didn't know about missing time, I didn't understand that I had missed it. You can only know about what you know. You can't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
So then she begins to tell me that her and her husband, who I knew this, had always rented their house out for a couple months out of the year to some Canadian friends of theirs. My mother owned a gorgeous houseboat, and they would go out and they would tool around in the Gulf of Mexico and rent their house out. And she was my mother was in management with Honeywell Aerospace. And I had worked at Honeywell Aerospace as a secretary just previous to this happening. And my mother was still in management there, and my sister still worked there as a secretary, but I didn't. I got laid off after the Minuteman project, and they were going to do the Gemini, and I wasn't rehired for Gemini. So, and none of that made any sense to me back then. It does today, but none of it made any sense to me back then. It was
We
just
had
all,
nowhere, Terry, we had nowhere to go back then,
yeah,
of
yeah. Who are you
information
going to
that,
talk to?
which I was going to add, like there was what we had Nova on television, which was very, you
I
didn't have
never
a
watched
block,
it.
right? No,
Yeah,
but they didn't go over anything like this to that extent.
no,
There was nowhere to go.
right,
Who did you turn outside of your family? Who did you turn to first after all this? Was it
right.
family, or where did you go?
Well, so sitting there with my mother after I had my little screamathon and she shut me up, she said, Marty and I have been out on the boat many times, and these green cylindrical crafts shot up out of the water, hovered over the Gulf of Mexico, and shot off so fast. She said it was like we didn't even see them. And she said, we've seen this many times, so I know what you're telling me is true. And I'm like, okay, okay. At least you understand. Okay, I'm sorry I'm so mad, but you really should have told me about
Mm,
this. And she had never till that day discussed it with me because she also thought it was way too bizarre. And you don't, back in that day, you did not talk about this kind of thing.
right.
And so she said to me, you need to be quiet because Terry, if you ever want to get hired back to Honeywell, you need to keep your mouth shut. If you share this with anybody, they're going to think you're full blown nuts, and everybody will just write you off as some kind of a goofball. So I really did respect my mother. And only person I talked to about it was my pastor, and he rebuked me and he told me, you're nuts. I mean, and I thought, oh, how dare you say, I mean, I'm coming to you, telling you what's happening. And he did not want to talk about it. He didn't want to hear it.
Mhm. I
He
totally believe
didn't,
that. Yes.
yeah, he didn't want to help me. Well, he wasn't a Catholic. He was just a non-denominational pastor, but he's also the one that I was working with in demonology. But 99% of the Christians at that time did not believe in UFOs, and I was one of them. But then I left that boat immediately, and I thought, I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. I stood in front of that Honda Civic. I saw with my own two green eyes that thing flip, do this, shoot up. I saw that ball and boom. I experienced that. I was in that other craft. I saw those two ugly things and I saw that tall white thing. And nobody is going to tell me any different. I'm not crazy. As a matter of fact, I registered pretty high because I was starting to think something was wrong with me,
Why wouldn't
and
you? I mean, that's
yeah,
natural. Yeah.
well, of course, I was like, maybe something is wrong. Maybe I shouldn't be, maybe I should check that out. And so one of my girlfriends said, well, take an IQ test. And I was shocked at the results. And I thought, okay, I'm not nuts. But anyway, so that was the beginning of my extraterrestrial life. And then I knew when they were around. I knew it. If I saw them or not, something, I would have these different vibrations that I would hear, and they would go up and then they would come back down. And then they would shoot way up high and then they would come way back down again. And it was literally a high, high, high frequency pitch that would happen. And I would be looking around for them, but stupid me, I was looking this way, not this way, because I was not a believer. And I didn't understand that to see them, you had to look up. It just didn't compute, okay? When you don't
Sure.
believe something, you don't believe it. And so you live like you don't believe it,
Right.
so it wasn't until later that I, started having other things. But after that, the paranormal went off the charts in my life.
So you
Off.
opened it up. When you open that door, just like you said, it doesn't stop, it gets broader. Do you think that because you're more sensitive, that you're more susceptible to such things, whether it's a portal, an alien, an angel? Is it who you are that leaves you open to these things, or do they choose you and open you up? Which way?
Well, that is a very good question. And
I'm
I will,
curious.
before the 1979, in 1973, I had the most powerful spiritual experience.
Hmm.
And I was not overly Christian. I was raised in a Catholic church, went to Catholic school for a little bit. And so I knew there was a God, but I didn't know his name, didn't know anything about him because, we had the catechism. We didn't really, I got confirmed, all that stuff. And I never even really understood it all. It was like way over this girl's head. And
I get
so,
it. I totally understand what you're saying.
yeah. I mean, when we went to church, they didn't even talk to us. They just, did that stuff that smelled real good. And stand up, sit down, kneel, pray. Stand up, sit down, kneel, pray. And I'm like, whatever, what is going on in this place? So anyway, I got out of that.
That's
But in 19,
it's funny how you put that. That's all.
well, that was my experience.
Yeah, well, I was there. I get it.
You're not alone in that one.
Yeah, not a lot. Yeah. Recently, I'm just saying, but anyway, she'll tell you about it. Yeah.
Well, so in 73, I had a vision. And it's hard to make this quick because it was about a 5-hour experience, almost went into a full 8 hours. But I did have a vision of the Lord. He appeared to me. He spoke audibly to me. And again, that is not bizarre to me because remember, I will tell you, when I was a little girl, about 3.5, I remember saying to the Lord, now go figure, I said, I want to come home. And I was talking to him. My mother heard this. And I said, okay, I'm ready to come home now. And I heard him say to me, you cannot come home. And I said, well, I really should come home because I've experienced everything now. I've been outside in the snow. I've experienced the rain. I know what it's like to be hot. I've already had spaghetti and I like it. And my mother heard me talking to the Lord in the room. And I said, and I've had pizza and I've had chocolate, and chocolate ice cream is my favorite. And then I said,
Instant chocolate ice cream right here. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
yeah. And I said that to the Lord as a tiny little girl. And I said, so there's nothing more for me to experience here. And I want you to bring me home now. And again, I heard him say, no, Teri. And he was like a loving father. It was the most beautiful thing. And when he would discipline me, I would immediately accept whatever he said. And I went, well, but I really do want to. No, Teri. Okay. And then I forgot about it. Then when I was in, let's see, the beginning of junior high school, I was still very young. I was walking home from school and I was still always talking to him. And I got to this one area on the street where there was this big bush, and I used to take the leaves of the bush, crack them in half, and smell them because they smelled so fresh and so good and so clean. And I love that little bush. And every time I would go by it, I would just crack all these little leaves and sniff them. And so all of a sudden I'm there sniffing my little leaves, and I hear an audible voice. And he says, Teri. And I went, yeah. And he said, are you going to be good or are you going to be bad? And I went, I'm going to be good. And then I stood there because I'm a little older now. I'm like 11 or 12. And I'm looking around going, who said that? For the first time, I was questioning that audible voice. That was the first time I ever questioned it. I had had it from the time I was a little girl on, but now I questioned him. And I had never done that before. And so then I'm like, who said that? And I remember looking full around. There was not one soul on that street except me standing in front of the bush with the cracked leaf. And I walked on home going, why did he ask me? He knows I'm going to be good. He already knows that, and so that's why I'm telling you when I say, weird things happen. So I'm 21 at the time, and I'm at a friend's house. And I'm actually in quite another conundrum. I was committing adultery. I was married. I had a little boy, 3 months old, but I wanted to leave my husband because I really never loved him. Just married him because I was pregnant. I had the baby, wanted out. I wanted out. And I'm humbling myself. It's
No, I
embarrassing.
applaud you for talking openly. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really embarrassing.
Yeah,
But
no, you kind of blew us away with your just being so truthful just then.
yeah, I'm always embarrassed. No matter how old I get, I'm still very embarrassed that I was such an idiot. But anyway,
you're
this
very
man,
human.
well, yeah, I'm very human. But this man had said, well, I know you don't love your husband. I met him in high school. He said, I've always been in love with you from the day I saw you. You leave your husband and come with me. And I said, okay, I'll do it. So I'm at his house and I'm making all these plans with him to move forward. There's a knock on the door. It's my husband. And I'm like, yikes, So he walks in, and now Edward, man's name was Edward, and his name was Richard. Richard walks in and he sits down, and Edward is sitting to the right. Richard is sitting to the left. And Richard goes, Teri, we have a little discussion to have here. You need to make a decision. And I'm like, what? Unbeknownst to me, these two were in cahoots. They both knew I was having something going on with each one of them. So I was caught right in the middle of my little game I was playing that I thought was a game I was playing and I was going to get away with, because it was called sin and I was losing. And so Richard said to me, make a decision. Do you want to stay with me or do you want to go with Edward? Well, that was I got real smarmy. And I said, how dare you both do this to me? I got real smarmy and sassy. And I said, I don't want either one of you. I said, I didn't know you guys were in cahoots here. I thought that, I was just going to be able to leave and it was going to be okay. And I didn't know I was going to have to be embarrassed like this. Well, I was so embarrassed. I turned around to put my hand on the door to leave. And I put my hand on the door and I hadn't even twisted it yet. And I heard a third voice. Whoa. And it said to me, that is not the only decision that you have to make. And I
Okay.
recognized that voice, and I'm like, no, no, that. And I turned around, and right between Richard and Ed was the Lord standing right there.
Whoa.
And I looked at him and went, whoa, I'll take what's behind curtain number 3. I was like, holy moly, he's gorgeous. He was beyond gorgeous, beyond George Harrison gorgeous. Okay. And
Wait, what made you say George Harrison? I was thinking about the confrontation with George Harrison and the woman and Eric Clapton. I saw that scenario when you were telling me that. That's weird.
that's crazy, isn't
I
it?
almost brought up George Harrison because I read that book too.
I'm telling you,
Weird.
I used to think George Harrison was the most beautiful man. And when I saw the Lord, I was like, whoa, I'll take what's behind door number 3. He rebuked me for my lust. And my head went way back, almost off my shoulders. And I was like, wow, whoa, it was like he slapped me for being lustful towards him. And then his eyes were very, very stern looking at me. And he let me know, you're not doing that again. And I went, oh, who are you? The Lord? And he said to me, I am the Alpha and Omega, your resurrection. And I'm like, what? Resurrection? And then I laughed. I said, oh, resurrection. I went, that means you're dead. I'm not dead. I'm 21 years old. I'm the picture of health. I'm standing right here, And now remember, Richard is sitting here and Ed is sitting here. They're both in freeze frame. They are both frozen stiff. They are not moving.
I'm there right now, actually.
Yeah. And they're not moving a muscle. And I'm having a conversation eyeball to eyeball with Yeshua himself. But my sin was so massive. And I remember putting my hands up and going, don't look at me, don't look at me. And his eyes moved my hands away. And I just stood there looking at him thinking, oh, and the next thing you know, boom, I was dead. I had a near-death experience. I was dead. And I was in this black void, a place where there was no hope. There was no love. There was nothing other than loneliness, resentment, anger, fear, terror. And you could not hear a thing. And I knew my body was there because I hit something when I fell, and I knew my hands were still attached to my body. And I put my hand up and I could not see it. It was not black. It was pitch black. And I knew my hand was there, but because I couldn't see it. And at night, when we shut the lights off to go to bed, our eyes will adjust to the darkness, and we can see our hand, we can see our feet, we can see everything around us in the room, and it's dark and you can see. There was no adjusting of eyes here. It was pitch black. And I knew my hand was there, and I went, I know I'm moving my hand in front of my face. So I went like this and this and this. And all of a sudden I touched my face and I was scared out of my gourd. I'm like, oh, it's my hand, but I can't see it. I can't see anything. And that's total separation from God. And I knew then God is real. And I started screaming, I want to live. I want to live. I don't want to die. I want to live. And I knew I had been smarmy, nasty. I had lusted. I was caught in adultery. I mean, all this crap is going on. And I'm like, he's not going to let me live. I'm no good. I'm no good. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I just want to live. I just want to live. And I don't know how long I was there, but then I fell down. And a crack started. I heard this little crack, like when you crack an egg, you can actually hear it. And it started at the top of my head and it went all the way down to my big toe on my left side. But here's the thing, it was slow. It was so slow. Whoa. And I thought to myself, oh no, when it got to my big toe, I thought, oh, my insides are going to blow out. I'm going to start spilling out. It's going to be blood and guts everywhere. I'm dead. I'm dead. This is what death is. I'm dying now. And I'm just going to come apart at my seam. And it started at the top of my head. Now it's to my toe and I'm going to lose it. And I was just crying and screaming, please let me live, at the top of my lungs. And then all of a sudden, with Richard sitting there and Edward sitting there, Jesus raised me up, brought me out of that pitch darkness. I'm now standing somehow. I had hit the floor. I am somehow now standing in his presence, and he's still there. Richard and Ed have not moved an inch. They are like this, in total freeze frame. Their eyes are blinking, but they don't hear and they cannot comprehend what I'm experiencing. But they did not move. And this is all happening. And then he started speaking scripture to me, which I had never heard before. And he said, you must be born again. I'm like, born again? I mean, I'm 21. How do you get born again? I mean, what do you do? Oh, gross. You know, I can't crawl back up inside my mother. That's the most disgusting. You know, what are you talking about? And I was questioning him. So all of this was going on. It was a very, very long thing. But he came up to me and held his hand out. And when he did, I saw this huge hole in his hand, and I could see the carpet on Edward's living room floor right through the hole in his hand. And then I went, oh, you are the Lord. You're the Lord. And then I understood, not really well, but I understood that I was in the presence of the Lord himself. And then I was like, oh, okay, whatever you say goes. You tell me what you want me to do. I will do whatever you tell me to do. And he handed me something and it came in. And when it came in, I felt like, oh, I'm so new. It was like I was pure white. And I felt this heavy cloak on my shoulders and this huge heaviness on my head. And I thought, what is that? I couldn't see it, but it was on me. And I didn't understand it. And he said, you are my chosen child. And I said, chosen? Chosen for what? You know, and this is why, if you move now to 1979, I was so shocked talking to him going, what are you showing me this crap for? You know, why would you let me see this? Go back to 73. I'm standing there going, wow, this is God in the flesh, Yeshua, and I'm in his presence. And then he gave me whatever gift it was, and I didn't know what it was other than it was holy boldness. And it was the understanding that I would become a demonologist. I have immense power in my prayers and in rebuking the enemy, and I do it in his name with him, and he takes care of it. I'm just the vessel there. But he's healed me from cancer. He has healed me from so many different things. I've almost been killed, and he has, oh my God, I mean, miraculously kept me from being crushed by a semi. So many things have happened, and he has protected me. And even with the alien healing, well, that's a whole nother ball of wax. And I never could understand that. So all of these things, the spiritual, the angelic, I started seeing angels in the house after that. They would just pop in, pure white, long robes, and they would give me messages, speak to me. They would tell me things. Before my son Jason came, an angel came to me and said, you will have a son named him Jason. I'm like, okay, I did. Then another time, you'll have a son, name him Joshua. Okay, I did. Now, back in the 70s, when I had them in 73 and in 75, we didn't have sonograms. You got pregnant, you waited, you delivered your baby, and that's when you found out what you were having, because we didn't have all that technology back then like you guys do now. So, I mean, and I'm telling the doctors, the angel came and told me I was going to have a son. His name's going to be Jason, and the doctor's laughing at me. And so Dr. Smith finally gets to the moment, and I would take no drugs. I had live births. I said, do I have a boy? He goes, you have a boy. I said, his name is Jason. You know, it was unbelievable how it worked. And I am telling you the truth. My mother could tell you this if she was alive. My sisters will all tell you it because they're alive. My brother can tell you he's alive, one of them. I mean, all my family would attest to this. They watched me walk through these things. And Richard, who lives right down the street from me now, followed me through my divorces, and I'm married for the third time. And my first husband and my second husband are my best friends. They're just friends. Richard is still a very, very good friend, lives right down the street with my son. And I'm still helping him. You know, he's very elderly, and you know, I help minister to him and things like that still. I just don't believe in hate. I believe love conquers everything. We just learn to be kind. Be kind. If you can't be anything else, be kind, you know.
Yeah,
And
we're
so,
both struggling with that now and then, but yeah, I get you.
yeah, I mean, it's not easy because we hurt people. You know, when we're hurt, we hurt. And that often causes so many life issues. So we just have to learn to be humble and kind and caring. And we're actually here to find out about why we're here and what our purpose is to be here, and then to live in that and spread that. But instead, we get caught up in immaturities, anger issues, fights, you know, this, that, jealousies, you name it. It's all out there, but it's coming from the demonic realm. It is not coming from God. It's coming from the demonic realm. And this is why being a demonologist is so important. I never pass up the opportunity to deliver somebody who is ready. I cannot deliver someone from their friend. If they've made that demon their buddy, I can't deliver that person. But if they say to me, I don't want to do this anymore, I don't want this demon in my life anymore, now I can pull that baby out and cast it away. But until that person is ready to get rid of that demon that's manipulating them, controlling them, giving them attitudes and anger issues and all other kinds of things, which are not fruits of the spirit,
Mm-hmm.
I can't deliver that thing until you're ready to ditch it.
Right.
So that's why all of my deliverances work, because you got to be wanting it. You know, you really have to want it, you know.
We,
But
I come from the school of Elaine Warren and the Warrens. I've read all their
yeah,
books and seen her in person and
Mhm.
briefly met her. And yeah, that whole bit. I don't know where they were with this, but I have a theory that I've rolled over again and again from other people and people I've met at conventions and otherwise, periods of transition. And it sounded like every time you had something amazing or horrible happen, you were in some weird transition, whether it's starting junior high or when you were 21. These are periods of our lives where the biggest changes take place. And
Right.
it leaves you open, like just like you said, going down a road at night, you know, something like that. But do you believe in this theory of transitional time in our lives and leaves us open to these otherworldly beings coming into them?
I do. I think that we are walked through these things to overcome. You know, in the scriptures, the Lord said, "He that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God." And I remember the day I read that, I went, overcometh what? What do we have to overcome? We have to overcome the world. We
Mm,
have to overcome the temptations of our flesh. We have to overcome attitudes. We have to overcome hate. We have to overcome judgments. And this is why, you know, many in the church are hated today, because they're so judgmental. You know, I mean, they are so judgmental.
oh
And you know,
yeah, they wouldn't marry my wife and myself. This is going, you know, in the 90s, but because we were,
yeah,
you know, Methodist and Christian, Methodist and Catholic, nobody, I was actually told by someone they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And I don't want to say who that was, but I was very surprised, taken aback, questioned my faith at that point. And you know, you overcome things too. So, but
yeah,
yeah, you're met with adversity in the church as well, unfortunately.
sure.
Yeah.
And I think all these different stages that we go through, either, you know, David, either we're going to mature
Mhm.
and we're going to elevate our relationship with God and others, or we're going to become very stagnant. And
Mm.
I was at a study the other night, and I shared, you know, you can't live on a bottle all your life. Babies go from bottles to solid food and then to meat, you know. And that's how we should be as Christians. We should start with milk, but then we need to have some solid food, and then we can eat the meat. And we can start digesting this and grow and mature. We got to get the thumb out of our mouths as baby Christians and stop drinking the bottles and start doing the work. You know, coming into all of this, there's a responsibility. And then all these other realms are coming at us as well. But we need to understand what is the main realm we're to be dealing with. And that's our godly realm. All these other realms are very real. I don't care what anybody says. I have seen demons. I have spoken with them. I have rebuked them. I have bound them. I have cast them out. I have seen angels. I have talked to them. I've received messages from them. I've seen spirits. I have seen a Bigfoot in Lakeland in the Green Swamp. I've seen cryptids. I've seen so many things in my life. They are real. These other realms are real. They're just as real as God. I mean, look at the Anunnaki, look at the Sphinx, look at the pyramids, look at the things that the sands of time have covered. They've been covered, but we now, it says in the Bible, in the last days, knowledge will increase. Why? Because archaeologists are uncovering the past, and we're starting to see we're not the only ones who have lived on this planet Earth. Earth has been inhabited by many different types and species, and some of them are still here and others are not. You know, we know dinosaurs were here because we've dug them up. We know that all these things used to come here from the sky because all the indigenous tribes have told us that they've seen them. There's pictures of them on the walls all over the world. There's the Inca lines. There's all kinds of proof that we haven't ever been alone. And God was here first. He created it all. He allowed it all to happen because he is looking for those who will trust him in the midst of all of this. He's looking for faith. He's looking for those who love him because he first loved us. And we can't get caught up in all these other things. He made them too. And this is, oddly enough, I was led to MUFON by a voice. And the first voice came to me in 2008, 29 years after my experience in 79, and said to me, literally, go to the computer, report your sighting. That was 29 years ago, and I got right up. I went right to the computer, and I did exactly as I was told. And I reported it. And the executive director, Carry On, called me, spoke to me. People were asking me what all happened, and I wouldn't tell them everything because at the time, I still wasn't sure I could trust anybody with this. I was afraid. I didn't know MUFON was MUFON. I didn't know what MUFON was all about. But when I went to type it in, I said, how do you do that? And I put report a UFO and up came MUFON. So anyway, 2 years later in 2010, I'm sitting on the same couch. The same voice says to me, get up, go revisit your sighting account. I went, okay. I got up and I went, was it MUFON, Muffin, something. And I typed it in, found all the information, hit become a field investigator. And within 3 years, I was on the board of directors. And that wasn't me. I did not choose to be on the board of directors. I was moved up, just like the voice said, go to the computer. I do as I'm told, and then these things happen. My life is not like a lot of other people's lives, but if we're faithful and we just listen, and well, I know which voice to listen to and which voice not. I mean, I'm not jumping off any towers or anything because some voice tells me to. But what I'm saying is, you know, I don't want you to think I'm a nutbag. But on the other hand, I know what voice to listen to and I know who I'm listening to. So this is where I am right now. And you can see where I am right here in this room, right? You can see this room. Okay,
Yep.
this is my bedroom. It's two huge rooms in this old antebellum mansion we bought. And you see where those pillars are right there?
Mhm.
Just a couple of weeks ago, Kevin was over here on this side, and I was over there on my bed. You can see the end of my bed. I was sitting on the bed with my computer, and all of a sudden, broad daylight, 11 o'clock in the morning. I mean, you know, huge crash, huge crash. It was so huge. I thought our windows fell in all over the house. And I jumped up and I looked at my husband, who was sitting over here working on something over here. He had a little desk up here, which I've since moved. And I said, "What was that?" He goes, "What was that?" And it happened right there, right in the middle of the room. I'm on the other side of the pillars and he's on this side of the pillars. And yet nothing was crashed. But we both heard the most massive glass crashing, powerful crash. It was just unbelievable. These things happen all the time. And you can't just say, "Oh, that didn't happen." Oh, it did. And Kevin was right in the room with me. And I have to give an account for every single thing I say to you before God when I'm dead. And I'm not telling a lie. I'm telling you the truth because I'm not lying to anybody, because I'll be held accountable for it. And the other thing that happened right here in this room, as you see my bed over there. Okay, so I'm on the bed, I'm sleeping. My husband was working in Tampa, Florida. We had just moved here. We were here 1 week. I'm sound asleep, lights are out, you know. And all of a sudden, because we have 10 fireplaces in this house. There's one there, and the other one there's one there. So we have 10. And I came from Florida where we don't have fireplaces, okay? And so I told my son, burn one of them.
Too.
Oh, are you? Yay! Well, I miss Florida. But so we left one of them on for the night because it was 17 degrees outside and I didn't want the house to freeze. So we had a fireplace on. And I said to my son, who was staying here with me downstairs in another room, and I said, if anything happens to the fireplaces, make sure you wake me up. You know, if you get up to go pee or something and something don't seem right, I've never burned one of these things before. I'm scared to death. We're going to burn the house down. And so I said, just, you know, let me know. So the middle of the night, I'm sound asleep, tugging on my leg so hard. I thought, oh no, I woke up and I turned around and I thought Jason's going to be standing there pulling my leg. There was no one there. I flipped on the light, no one in the room. My leg was still up when I flipped. So whoever was pulling it had pulled it up and I was bringing it down on the bed and I'm like, I'm just ready to go, Jason. It wasn't Jason. And so I'm freaked out. I pick up the phone. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I called Kevin in Tampa and I go, okay, I'm a little freaked out. I'm new in the house. This just happened. What do you think? He goes, I don't know. Do you get that it's anybody in particular? I said, no, I don't. I don't know who it is. And so I said, I'm just going to rebuke it and go back to bed. We stayed up and talked about an hour, got me a little calmed down. And then I went to bed. I rebuked it and cast it out. And it was just so bizarre. And in this very house, just a year ago, Jason's downstairs getting something out of the refrigerator. And he's home alone downstairs. I'm upstairs. And he hears a girl's voice say, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" And he like goes, what the heck? And he's getting his coffee. And he's like looking around in the kitchen. And he goes, I didn't hear that. And then she yells at him, "Can you see me? Can you see me?" And he goes, okay, that's it. He put his coffee down, came running up the steps. He stood in that doorway over there and he goes, Mom, he was as white as a ghost. And he goes, come downstairs. Something is talking to me in the kitchen at the refrigerator. It's a young girl. She's very young. and I can't see her or hear her. And she asked me if I could hear her, if I could see her. And I said, do you recognize the voice? And he said, no, not at all. So I go down, I click about 20 pictures. We never found out who it was, why it happened. The only reason I'm sharing these things though, David, is because people need to know these things are real. They can and do happen to people. And when they do, of course, I immediately cleanse the house, cast it out in the name of Jesus, put a hedge of protection around my home, around my son, anointed him with oil, and said, Lord God, did you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll rebuke it. It happens all the time when I start talking about strange things. The lights can even go completely off.
Don't worry, that does not phase us. So don't worry. Yeah, but
yeah,
totally.
good.
Honestly, everything you're saying, this show, we have a strange arc on that because we do have a healing portion of the show that is going to be new.
Cool.
Yeah, Jess has a lot to do with that. I don't know if you want to talk on that a little bit, and because then there's a segue with something very similar to you. But
yeah, I don't know how to even really like elaborate as much on the healing portion.
well, just what we're gonna introduce at some point.
Yeah.
What we have introduced. Yeah.
Well, I mean, a big thing with me, right, is mental health and just trying to, recover, spread awareness, things like that. Mental health obviously has a lot of effect on physical health. And yeah, I mean, I just, it's one of those things a lot of people don't talk about, at least not in the sense that we seem to always talk about it. It's strange. Like you always hear you're not alone. I'm here for you, things like that. But like, healing is also in and of itself like a stressful thing.
Yeah.
And I think people don't realize that. So yeah.
Oh, it sure is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But healing is another thing that is absolutely the most powerful thing. I was just recently healed from a skin cancer that I had literally right here.
I was not aware of that. I
it
know
was
about
great.
the other story, but yeah.
Yeah, the alien heal. That's another one.
Yeah.
But there was a skin cancer here, and I had said to my husband, should I go to Dr. Outlander and have him take a biopsy? Should I see about getting it burned off? I lived in Florida 60 years, and I was always at the beach and in the sun and, had a pool laid out. So of course you get these little skin cancers, and it was real itchy, and it was getting bad. And so then I was listening to Andrew Womack, who is a teacher that talks about the word and the healing. He has raised his son from the dead. His son was dead for 4 hours. He was in a cooler in the morgue with a toe tag. And he went in there and raised his son and said to his son, Daniel, get up. And Daniel got up, and the people in the morgue almost had a heart attack, because that's faith and that's power. And to have that kind of power, you have to have a relationship with God. This isn't just your minimal relationship. Well, I believe, because see, when I was a baby Christian, a friend of mine's baby drowned in the pool, and they took him to the morgue down at Mountain Park Hospital, and I went to the morgue to raise that baby. That's how strong my faith is. And I said, I can't let this baby die. I've got to get this baby. And I was ready to do it. I went to the morgue by myself. They actually let me in the morgue. I walked in looking for this little baby body, but he wasn't there. They had already taken him to the funeral home and had already embalmed him. Had they not, I would have raised that kid, because it takes a certain type of faith. And it says if you have the faith of a grain of mustard seed, and you work on that and you believe it, you can say to the mountain, move, and the mountain will move. And that's what I did here. I just said, get off in the name of Jesus. I bind this. I will not accept this. I want this off. I said, Father, I put it in your hands. I woke up, it was gone.
That's important for me, because I'm aware of the other one. That go ahead, but I'd like if you could tell us the alien healing story, it's just beyond.
Well, the alien healing is a pretty long story, so I'll give you the very little bit
Yeah.
pieces of it. Okay, so in
Absolutely.
2000, I had been diagnosed with Crohn's colitis, and I was
I'm
very,
sorry to interrupt. I do want to say thank God. I'm glad that is gone now.
oh, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. I mean, it's not there.
Yeah, I didn't
And
want
I
to
was
gloss that over.
Yes, I am so pleased. And he's also, I fell down 3 stairs, okay? I'm 72. Well, I'm 72 years old. I didn't
You
even
don't look
get
72. No.
I'm 72 and I didn't even get hurt. I got right back up and walked. I mean, 3 stairs all the way down. And I fell hard on my face and my head. And
Oh, wow.
God is so good. And all it takes is faith. That's all it takes. But that's huge. Faith is huge.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the alien healing in 2000, I had this surgery. It was called a subtotal colectomy, where they take out all your large intestine. And because it had been so diseased and it was getting, they said it was going to go cancerous. So I just told them to get rid of it. And after the surgery, 6 weeks later, I had to have a second surgery. So here I'm trying to heal up, and now they're cutting right through all of those sutures to reopen me for another 8.5-hour surgery because something went wrong and I was in unbelievable pain. And they thought there was a bleed there. They had to go back in and fix the bleed. They did that. And then they put me back together again, and I hurt worse than I had ever hurt even before. And so, make a long story short, 12 years later, I had asked the Lord to heal me, and I didn't get healed. And I thought, that's odd, but okay, this is the new normal for me. Whatever you say goes. You gave Paul a thorn in the flesh. I guess this is my thorn in the flesh. I'm not going to question it. And so I went to bed like I did every other night. And in the middle of the night, I heard my name called, which I always hear my name called. I've had so many out-of-body experiences, angelic experiences where God has come and got me out of my body, taken me to the heavenly realm. I've had so much of that. That's a whole nother story. But this one, I rolled over after I heard my name called. I woke right up and rolled over, and I was shocked beyond, I mean, total shock. And I'm like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me, And I'm looking at this thing. It's a 4-foot extraterrestrial alien. I paid a lot of money for this to have somebody kind of do a picture of what I saw. This is very
Yeah, you had that with you at the
Yes.
MUFON conference. Yeah.
Yes. And this
Jess is not unfamiliar with that.
Oh, okay.
That particular creature, we'll just say.
Oh, good. Oh,
But
I
not
want to
that.
hear about it. Yeah,
But-
we'll have to get together and talk about that.
But she actually has a pet that's very similar. And you know what I'm
Oh.
talking about.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, I had never seen anything like that before. Nothing. I had dealt with a myriad of things, but not that. And so there it is. I'm looking at it. It's looking at me. I'm freaked out, totally freaked out. I'm very scared. And then it starts calming me, and I'm feeling the calm. I'm not unaccustomed to that. And I'm like, oh, wow, that is really crazy. I'm starting to feel like I'm not in danger. I'm okay. This is another type of an extraterrestrial. Everything seems to be okay, but wow, he is really interesting. And now all of a sudden it's like squirrel, and I'm looking at him and the colors, and he's got a ring around his eye, and I'm caught up in it. And I'm like, how am I getting caught up in this? Is so freaking weird. And yet it's all happening. And he's about 4 foot. He's definitely reptilian-like, got that kind of a face, although that guy that did that, it doesn't look like that. But and then he's being very still. And at some point I'm gonna move past a lot of stuff because we must be getting late here.
I get it. Yeah. It's okay.
And so he's got this claw hand, and in this clawed hand, very weird clawed hand, he's got this thing that's got a Y, and then it's got a base to it like this. And it's very odd, so freaking odd. And it's got one little area that's like a fern, very tightly clothed, and the other one is very long and spindly, and it has like this, and I mean long. It was freaky. And they're moving independently of each other. And I'm like, whoa, what the heck is that? And it's got like a little spade on the end of it, kind of like a suction. And all the way down this thing, and the rod part, this part was straight, but the two pieces off of it were like all over the place. And it was just even freaky to look at, but they were long, not just my two short little fingers, and they had like baby suction kinds of things on it. Reminded me very much of an octopus tentacle. And so as I'm looking at this, I'm going, oh my God, and then all of a sudden, mental telepathy, he speaks to me, be still. I hear this male voice, very gruff, very different, not like a human voice, not like the voices I normally hear. It's a different kind of a voice. And so, it's getting warm in here, but, and so then, as he's showing me this, or as I'm seeing this, all of a sudden he tells me to be still. I get still. I guess I was moving. I didn't know I was moving. He internally puts it internally into me vaginally, and around the area where I had that pain for all those years. This thing in my mind's eye, I'm seeing it. I couldn't see it, although I did see the other thing, snap onto me and hold on real tight on my outside abdomen, and it was holding this thing in place, and he had hold of this with that claw, and these two things were doing what they were doing. It was going wrapping itself around this area on my right side of my abdomen that had been hurting for 12 years, and then it started vibrating, and I'm like, oh my God, there was like a vibration to it, and then it started squeezing and getting tighter and tighter, and then I started feeling heat, and I'm like, what? Heat? Oh my gosh, it feels really hot. It was like, oh, that is really hot, and it was hot, but not like boiling hot, but warm, hot, and pressure, pressure, pressure. And in my mind's eye, I'm seeing this thing, and I'm just laying there going, what is going on? And I'm scared now because there's so much pressure on this little piece here that has been hurting for 12 years. I'm going, oh my God, it's going to be a freaking bloodbath. And I'm thinking to myself, any minute, there's going to be blood squirting out of me vaginally. This is going to be a trip. And I'm like, oh my God, no way. And I bring my hands up and I'm literally like this. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. And I was ready to scream out loud. I could not take another second. And just before I screamed, it started loosening. And I'm just sitting there like this going, oh, I think it's loosening. Oh my God, I think it's loosening. And then I can still feel vibration, heat, a little bit, very slowly loosening. And then finally I opened my eyes and I'm like, what the heck? And I'm looking for blood. I'm looking for blood somewhere on the sheets. Not a drop of blood. I'm going, where is he? Where'd he go? Where's that thing? What's going on? And so as I'm doing all these assessments, I very oddly feel like I can't move. So I just lay back down. I mean, come on. And so I'm laying there. My husband, his alarm goes off about 2 or 3 hours later. I'm still laying there. I don't want to get up. It occurred to me at the time, something happened. What happened? But I didn't know what happened. And so I'm just laying there. And now I know, and I can tell you now, I had been given some type of extraterrestrial, like a anesthesia. Okay. I don't know how they did it or what he did, but I couldn't move, nor did I want to move. So my husband gets up, takes a shower, gets dressed, makes his coffee. I can hear his keys dangling. He's going to leave now. He gets in the truck. I hear the truck start up. I hear the truck drive away. And I'm like, okay, I'll get up now. I even thought about telling him, and I thought, no. You can't talk to him. You can't say, I can't even handle it. What's he going to say? And so I'm like, no. So he leaves. I'm laying there at least another hour to 2 hours. And finally, I'm like, I better get up. Maybe I should get up. And I'm like, do I want to get up? And so finally I get up and I start moving and I realize, oh, I don't have any hurt there. That hurt is gone. I am walking without that hurt. Oh my God. And I'm like, oh, no way. Now the conundrum sets in like a 150-pound brick in my head. Oh my God. Did I just get healed by an alien? Are you kidding me? Why would God allow that? God, nothing can happen to me that you don't know. Why would you allow that? Now I'm totally freaked out, okay? Because I'm not a little kid anymore. And I'm like, holy crap. How can that be? You know, and I'm like really freaking out. And I'm trying to make some sense of it. I'm walking around the house going, oh my God, I got to talk to somebody. Just like the day I met the extraterrestrial, I got to go talk to my mom. Well, I said the same damn thing. Now I got to go talk to somebody. And I'm like, who do I call? Kathy Martin. She's on the ERT with MUFON. I'm in MUFON. I'm going to call a MUFON friend. She only lived 30 miles down the road from me. And I thought, if I have to, I'll go there. And then I thought, well, I'll also call Denise. So I'll call Denise later, but let me call Kathy first. So I call Kathy and Kathy goes, oh my God, Teri, you need to call Denise. So I called Denise and Denise goes, Teri, oh my God, have you taken a swab? Have you gotten a swab? Just a swab. And I'm not thinking right at all. I'm like totally still in shock somehow going, oh my God, this is such an issue for me. How do you get healed by anything but God? Nothing can heal you but God. You know, and it was a spiritual conundrum. It was a physical conundrum and a mental conundrum. And I was toast. And so Denise says to me, go get a swab and get a swab, put it in a Ziploc and throw it in the freezer. I go, okay. So I go and I get a swab and I swab myself vaginally, internally, throw it in the thing, throw it in the freezer. And then I'm like, okay, now what? And I said, look, you guys, the vibration, I'm still having it. And this has been like 5 hours now. And I'm like, the vibration is not stopping and I really feel weird. And that vibration, by the way, was the anesthesia. And I know that now, but I did not know that then. And neither did Kathy, and neither did Denise. This was all new to us, you know, and we're all MUFON for heaven's sakes, you know, and we're up there on the MUFON, you know, rung. It's not like they were ERT. So it wasn't like I was just talking to anybody. And so anyway, 7 years later, I'm going to move ahead again now. 7 years later, I get a call from another board member. I'm on the board. Debbie Ziegelmeyer calls me. She goes, hey, you still got that sample swab that you took that night in the freezer? I go, yeah, it's still there. You know, I said, I haven't touched it. It's behind the frozen meat. And so she goes, can you, if I send Lynn Mann information about it, she will send you a DNA kit plus a kit to send that in as well. So there's 2 kits coming. One is for your DNA, one is for the sample. And I said, okay. So I had a degree in radiology. I have a degree in radiology and sterilization tech. So I knew to be sterile. I laid out the paper. I did everything to par and touched nothing. I had gloves on, everything. I didn't, you know, everything was done to par. And then I sent it off to Lynn Mann. She calls me from the lab just a few months later or weeks later and goes, oh my God, are you sitting down? And I went, yeah, maybe I better sit down. So, and she says, can you, she said, you're going to be shocked when I tell you this, but this sample has a lot of proteins on it, more than I would expect as a 7-year-old. Have you ever taken it out? I said, I have never taken it out. I tell you before God, I'm not lying. I never took it out. It stayed there the whole entire time. And she goes, well, there's also another register on here. Your DNA is on here, but there's another register on here. And she goes, would you give me the permission to cut it up and, you know, look at it and blah, blah, blah. I said, absolutely. Whatever will help humanity and whatever's going to, you know, tell me what the heck it is. I'm like, I am like blown away by this. So she cuts it up and, you know, we know that every time she cuts it, it's lost now. We're never going to get it back again because, you know, that's all. Denise said, take a swab. I wish she would have said, Teri, take several swabs. I was in shock. I was only doing what I was told. And so it never even occurred to me, even though I'm a well-seasoned field investigator, when you're in shock, you're in shock. Okay, that's it. And so anyhow, so she looked at it again and she called me in about 2 more weeks. I was at a MUFON meeting and she said, "Oh my God, are you sitting down?" I'm like, "Oh no, not again." I said, "Yes, I'll sit down and let me put the phone on, speaker so my husband can hear everything." And she said, "Teri, there is definitely a second register. I've sent it off to all these different people that I know that do DNA profiling, and they're looking for what it might be. We've looked at a myriad of where it could fall." And she goes, "It is of a South American tegu lizard DNA on your swab and pond water." I'm like, "What? Pond water? This South American tegu lizard? Are you kidding me?" And she's like, "That's what's on here." And she goes, "Now we know who your visitor was." And I'm like, "Oh my God." That freaked me out. And so Kevin heard it, and I immediately started gaining as much information from her as I could. She did another cut on it, which was the final cut. Now we had nothing else. And she not only identified it with all the different gels that you have to identify it with, and all the different machinery in the lab that has to identify it, but she found it out. She tested everything from boa constrictors to rats to other types of snakes to birds to other types of lizards. But the only match was the tegu. So that extraterrestrial is a hybrid of a tegu that extraterrestrials have interacted with. And that is how that happened to me. It wasn't a coincidence. And so now we have that DNA on file. And should anybody else ever have that type of an experience, then we'll know. Now, here's the real, it just always gets crazier, David. No kidding. It's not that it could just be crazy. Now it has to go into ultra craze, okay? Total cray cray. And so then in 2019, now this was 2012, right? 2019, science comes up with they are now using octopuses' tentacles to heal people. And I'm like, what the heck? Are you kidding me? And so
she has a tegu lizard.
You have a tegu lizard?
She
I
does.
do. I have an Argentinian tegu. His name is Darth Vader, and he's the sweetest tegu I've met in my entire life. And it's so weird because they're usually food driven.
Trying to tell him they got these big jowls. He had this thing around his eyes. He had that face. Oh my God. And he was colorful. And the tegu comes in yellow and a red and a black and a regular skin, weird tone. But this one was a composite of all of them. It was an amalgamation of all those colors. And I'm like, holy crap. When I first saw the tegu, I was like, you've got to be kidding. That's him. That's him. So very close, and I was just blown away. But anyway, that is so cool to hear. So, now we know, and even science knows that the octopus can regenerate and cause healing. And this hybrid, it wasn't the alien who healed me. It was what he had. And it just occurred to me, his technology is what healed me, not actually him, or at least I don't think it was him. I think it was just the technology he had in that wand. Amazing. And that wand was biologically alive. That thing was alive. And now in 2019, we know that those tentacles on that octopus, and when I shared that with people, they were like, oh yeah, sure, it was an octopus. Oh yeah, sure it was. And I'm like, I'm gonna lie. No, I'm not. This is what it looked like. And now I'm like, thank you, God, he validated me.
You got this far and they're saying you're lying about an octopus. That's pretty funny in itself.
It is.
Amazing. Amazing. We're glad you're still with us. Wow, what a journey though. And I believe we only scratched the surface here.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
any questions? Mind blown over here.
Yeah, listen, I am a firm believer in fate, and there's just yeah, I'm going through some mental emotions right now, but I am so grateful and so glad that we got to talk to you.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
honestly am speechless.
Yeah, you kind of left us jaws hanging wide open here. But I want to say only till next time. What are you
Absolutely.
doing next? What's next on your agenda?
Well, being on the board, I have a board meeting coming up in October, so I'll be heading to Cincinnati for
Oh,
MUFON. And other than that, I mean, I'm always wherever the Lord leads me, I'm always just, there's divine appointments that He causes for me, which I love, I love, I love. And there's ministry that He causes for me that I absolutely love. And I'm just going deeper still. I'm always seeking to go deeper still and find more understanding, because even though I'm 72, I feel like being in the presence of the Lord has done something to me. It's deepened my relationship and my faith and my belief, and having had all these other experiences, now finally I know where they all belong in my life and how they fit. And
hmm.
I think that's the thing with most people, like even you guys, we're all walking each other home. Okay. None of us gets out alive. We all have a timestamp, and it's what we do from cradle to grave, how we interact with God and how we choose that belief in Him to be the epic, the paramount faith. And then we look at all these other things, which He allows us to see.
Mhm.
One of the things He said to me that night in 1979 was, "There's so much that you don't understand." And I'm like, yeah, no kidding. I'm not the brightest star in the sky. I'm not stupid, but I'm certainly not the brightest star in the sky. And I knew that.
Yes.
And now He's walking me through things. And if we'll just listen and obey and seek Him for answers about what is happening. Look at our world right now. We're in
Oh
a
my God.
spiritual battle.
Big
We are in,
time.
forget politics, folks. We're in a spiritual battle. People are possessed with demons. And if you doubt that, I will just quickly tell you real quick, when Jesus was walking, his real name is Yeshua. He never knew the name Jesus. That's a Greek name. It's a Roman name they gave him, but his true name is Yeshua. And when he was in the Gerasene tombs, there was one man who came up, and he was, like you were saying, mental health. He was spewing at the mouth. He was having an epileptic type seizure. It's described as an epileptic seizure, and he was being thrown about by a demon. And everybody knew he was demon possessed because he would run around naked. He would throw himself into fires. He would roll around in the fires and burn his arms. He would hurt himself because he was mentally challenged with all these different things that were going on, demonic things going on in his head. And Jesus walked up to him, and the demon possessed man, said, "Son of God, what have ye to do with me?" And Jesus simply looked at him, and this is what true um, deliverance looks like. Jesus just looked at him and said, "Who are you?" And the man said, "I am Legion." The demons in one human being can be a legion. Now, the definition of a legion is 6,000 men. That's a legion.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that term.
6,000
Yeah, all of that.
demons. Yes, in
It's
one human.
terrifying, but yeah.
And this is why when I look at mental health, I'm like, some of it could be DNA, but some of it could be demonic. Knowing 6,000 demons can be in one human being, we are in a spiritual battle for souls. It's always been about the spiritual battle. We've grown very far away from it. We have removed God from our schools, from our, law we've removed God from everything, and what we have now is what we asked for. No God. And it's getting nuts out there. It's getting very crazy. You know, people are acting wrong. They're not doing things properly. And there is a lot of really sick individuals in charge. And it's going to get worse. It's like I said, it never is just that. It's got to go extra cray cray. And the world is going extra cray cray right now. And it's going to continue to go extra cray cray. And we just had the money, you know, this big, you know, the Dow went and everything tanked. People are losing millions of money. All of their 401ks are crashing. People, and what do you think that's going to do in the long run? Without the peace of God, man, I'm telling you, people are going to go absolutely nuts. And it's all coming up.
Limitations within limitations. Like I've always felt the gift of foresight, and I've been able, a lot of things that I saw coming as a child, well, they're happening, and people don't really listen to that. You could tell them what's going to happen, and when it happens, oh, you're just guessing. You got lucky. I'm not surprised by anything happening around us, and I've been open to things. I'm not a portal like I'd like to be, and maybe you'd say I shouldn't want to be, but I am open to ideas, things, and portals to other dimensions and such. There's got to be more to all of this than us. That's my bottom. That's what I come down to all the time.
Yes, there is so much more, but we have to be very careful because spirits can shapeshift, they can deceive. The demonic realm is not your friend.
No.
And you know, and there are portals. Don't kid yourself. That stuff is real, David and Jess, but you've got to be very careful where you go and how you go and with whom you go. And if you're not led by the Holy Spirit, keep yourself away from it. Because
Elaine Warren said that very thing.
Yes.
In a conference I saw. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm here to tell you, I have walked into some of those things, and God showed me why I didn't belong there. And it was very difficult to get out of it. Very hard. It's a spiritual internal battle, you know, where Satan is telling you you're never going to get back, you know, you're never going to get back. God says, don't listen to him, just walk forward, you know. And so thank God I was able to do that. And you know, look at all the stuff I was involved with, you know, adultery, sin, lying, deception, you know, at a young age. And I had to get delivered from all that. And that is not who I am anymore, you know.
Yeah,
but
on a lesser level, you can succumb to darkness really easy. It's
anybody
easy to fall and keep going, and you got to find your way out. And it takes help. It does take help. You can't do it alone. You have to want to, though. You have to want to on your own.
Yes, you do. And you have to see that, you know, that there's this, that there's a certain way to do it.
I saw that flicker. By the way, this is the first time I'm recording this year, and there's no storm outside. So you brought some.
There's no storm here. This is perfect night.
You brought some light.
It's a beautiful night.
Listen, Teri Lynge-Kehl,
well, thank you for
we appreciate you so much. And I want to extend the offer to come back sometime.
Sure.
And we got some reading to do and get back to you as well. What now? Alien Healing is out there now, right?
Well, actually, I pulled it from the shelves because so much new information came in from the DNA and all that. I'm updating it, but my life is so stinking busy. I can't seem to get enough time to really dedicate to the book. So I really need to, you know, put my hand to the plow and make that happen. So
keep in touch with us, because I want to read that. I want to read that as soon as it's hot off the press.
I'm going to do it as an ebook, so it's cheap for everybody. Because, you know, these regular books that we buy are so expensive. And then, you know, and then we have this huge library. I mean, you should see my library downstairs. It takes 2 rooms, you know, and yeah, so I'm into ebooks now.
I go both, depending what's there. But hey, folks, friends, and fiends, you can get all of our episodes on Spotify and iHeartRadio. Where are you accessible? Where do you want people to find you these days?
Well, I started writing many years ago on TeriLynge.com before I was married to Mr. Kehl. Teri Lynge, and a lot of my experiences. And I was writing them as a much younger person, and I didn't understand a lot of things, but they were my experiences. And I've got about 150 of them on there, I think.
Oh,
So if somebody wants to go there, they can also reach out to me. I did that for my grandkids and my great grandkids. So, you know, I wanted them to know that when I'm gone, grandma went through that.
that's important. It's important to pass that on. And this
Yeah.
one here, she's working on an album. She's got music out there. Where do they find you? You know, these Bandcamp and
Jess Weary. You can find me on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook. I'm kind of everywhere at this point.
at this
I
point.
don't have much out, but what I do have out means a
Oh,
lot.
she's
So
always coming up with stuff, but and there's stuff
true.
out there right now. She don't let her fool you. But thank you so
Cool.
much for this, and we'll
Yeah.
talk again soon, I hope.
Okay.
All right,
I'm good.
and don't stay too busy. You need some room to breathe too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really do.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Well,
I've
thank
enjoyed it.
you so much. We enjoyed this so much.
Thank
And
you.